Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
All right, and welcome back into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast. It is the NFL playoffs. It is wildcard weekend, super wildcard weekend. Instead of traditionally getting 4 wildcard games in this unprecedented year, we get 6 games, which is exciting because more football is always better. Make playoff football great again. And fresh off of his winning the Vegas Squares contest, Token Tony, do you have any celebratory speech planned? Anyone you'd like to thank for this victory?
I'd like to thank myself for not fucking this one up, which almost came.
Yeah, you pulled a me and tried to blow it down the stretch.
Yeah, I was thinking middle of last week to pick 2 games where it had a hook already where I couldn't lose, and force Spike to go 5-0 for a push, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get aggressive, and I almost shot myself in the foot for that. So
yeah, you got to be careful with that sometimes. Sometimes just playing it safe is the best way in these contests. But nevertheless, you did come out with the victory and a few hundred shekels for your efforts there on a hard-fought season where I think Tony Johnson may have beat you if he could bet Tuesday and Wednesday lines.
yes.
Yeah, or maybe just a few more weeks in the season would have been nice. We just stretch out this regular season a little bit.
Week 18, like, what was it, 1993 or something like that?
There you go. Yeah, that would have been nice.
Where they had 2 buys that year?
Yes, I think you're right, Token. It was one of those years. You probably got it right there. But, yeah, no, I felt good. I had the opposite feeling as you, Token. I felt really good down the stretch. I think it was like 21-14 the last 7 weeks. It just couldn't quite get enough. So, yeah, just when you start in that big of a hole like I did, I mean, you don't really deserve to be there in the end, to be quite frank with you. So, yeah, but it was a very entertaining contest, and yeah, I like the setup. I really do. I think it's a really interesting setup. It's it's about the hardest contest I think you could pretty much come up with and still have a fighting chance. So, no, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair because a lot of people, I would say average Joe sports bettor says, oh, how hard could it be? Just moving the line half a point, no big deal. But yeah, you're getting 1 day's worth of lines, moving them against you. It can be tougher than you give it credit for. So, but nevertheless, again, congratulations to Token Tony. And after all of that, we came up with 0 contests for the playoff. We just couldn't agree on anything. There was a lot of different brainstorm ideas, but at the end, we're just gonna give you our picks this week. We got 6 games. There's at least 12 bets, tons of props. Everything's kind of going around. I think with that, taking the pressure off during playoffs to actually be able to handicap and look at good lines this week. Hopefully that'll come out better for all the 4 of us and for you if you're listening. I want to thank a few sponsors here. Obviously, 12-Ounce Sports Network, ZingoTV, and then our new outlets, Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can find those if you search 12-Ounce Sports. Obviously, our main sponsors, Vice Golf and Fanatics.com. Please head over to lvsquares.com and click those affiliated links. And when you shop, it doesn't cost you any more, and it helps out the channel and the podcast. And then our newest sponsor is the HEATR bet tracking app. Actually, we're going to start using that here in the playoffs. I'll put those out. You can track us, search Vegas Squares on the HEATR bet tracking app, and our bets will be on there for you to track. So you can keep us and hold us accountable for the playoff season here in the 2021 Wildcard Divisional Championship and Super Bowl. All right, gents, new year, or kind of not a new year, but a new calendar year. Playoffs here. We got 7 teams in each conference. The top 2, obviously Kansas City and Green Bay, get a bye. Taking those 2 out of the equation, just off the top of your head, from the research you've been doing all week, Spike, I'll start with you. 1 or 2 teams in this wild card weekend that you think actually has a legitimate chance to win it all?
Well, you have to like the Saints. I mean, they've put themselves in a good position all year. The defense has looked better than they've had at any point in the last, probably 10 to 12 years since the last time they were in the Super Bowl. And Drew Brees is Drew Brees, so you've got a really good makeup of a team there. So I actually really like the Saints coming out of the NFC. Even if we had the chance to pick the Packers, I wouldn't. I'd pick the Saints over them. And then the AFC, I think, is a little more wide open. Taking Kansas City aside, I think Pittsburgh and Tennessee and even Buffalo could all make really good cases on why they should be there. And I think of those three, and I hate to say it for that AFC East rivalry, but I think Buffalo's got the best shot.
Token, what about you? What are your thoughts? Who do you think? I mean, I know that Spike kind of went over, almost all the teams, but who do you think really can emerge, not named Kansas City or Green Bay, out of this wild card weekend to be a Super Bowl contender?
Yeah, I hate to take the words that Spike said, but Buffalo is my number one contender of the AFC for sure. Tip of the cap, I would say, would be to Tennessee with the run game and pretty solid defense. Out of the NFC, I don't think it's as wide open against the Packers versus the field. Tampa, and I'm not even confident in that. So,
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's Tony the situation that happened last year, but I don't think anyone's going to sleep on Tennessee. Now they're a good team, but I think we kind of slept on Ryan Tannehill last year, and that's maybe why they jumped up and bit some people. I don't think they're going to get the same, especially from Baltimore this weekend.
I totally agree with you, Aaron. I think this is a bit of a different situation with Tennessee. In fact, I know we'll get into the games here, shortly, but it's really kind of a totally different team from, opposite ends. It was much more of a defensive team last year, with Derrick Henry, doing anything he could, to get the offense going. And now it's the complete opposite, really. They're an offensive juggernaut. And have struggled on the defensive end. So, yeah, I think it's interesting. To answer your question from earlier, I'm going to go a different direction. I actually do really like this Baltimore team a lot. I don't think it's a surprise at all. They've really started to blow people out the last few weeks. Yeah, they've played some soft competition, no question. But this is also relatively soft defense that they're going to face. They've been facing soft defenses. They're going to continue to face another one here. I'm not really quite sure how they're going to be stopped in this game. And as you said, a bit of a revenge type of spot here. Not that really matters. The playoffs, not saying it does, but certainly Baltimore will be all hands on deck and ready to go in this game because that was an embarrassing, bad loss last year at home in the playoffs. So, yeah, I really like Baltimore, especially this week and going forward. And, in the NFC, I'm going to take a really weird one here, but I like the Rams a lot still too. I actually hope it's more of a Walford show than it is Jared Goff. I think he's a little bit more dynamic behind center, gives him a few more options, especially with his legs. But this defense has just been absolutely tremendous the last few weeks. And, especially in this first week against Seattle, I think they stand a really nice chance in keeping this game very, very close and low scoring. And anything can happen in this spot. And as you guys said, there's really no team that I think everybody truly loves here out of the NFC. Yeah, there's some good ones certainly at the top. New Orleans, I agree with you, Spike. But I think the Rams, with how good this defense is, they can hang in there with anybody.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Tampa Bay here again because we can't pick Green Bay. I have futures on Green Bay to just win the NFC and also win the Super Bowl. Just like to see the feel-good story. Tom Brady obviously moving on, making it work out in a different location. And I agree with you, Tony. I think Baltimore is out for revenge. It all really depends on if Lamar Jackson can just elevate. I mean, we've seen it. You're talking about they're blowing teams out. He's thrown for 110 yards maybe weeks. I mean, they've got so many guys in the backfield to run the ball, and the timely passing. And like you said, Tennessee's defense was better last year. They're not as good this year. So, and the revenge factor, I think Baltimore's scary. Of the teams not named Kansas City and Green Bay, I like Baltimore and Tampa Bay here. So we're going to dive into all 6 of these games, get some super analysis, get our picks. I also have a teaser to share with everybody at the end, and
damn right you do.
But it's not a 14-point teaser.
Oh, okay.
Throw you a little curveball there. So we're going to go ahead and take just a little bit of a break here. Let 12 Ounce Sports pay some bills. We'll be back on the other side.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
At Amazon, we're pretty good at getting things done. We're pretty good at solving problems. COVID-19 is the biggest challenge we've had to face. But challenges are what motivate us. Like flying masks to our employees around the world. We're doing everything we can to get you what you need, and doing everything we can to keep our people safe. I'm former Navy pilot Sarah Rhodes, and I'm proud to lead our Amazon Air network.
All right, and we're back with the Vegas Squares Wildcard Weekend Pick Show. And again, we've got 6 games as opposed to the traditional 4. Just a quick yes or no answer here with this. I don't need a big, long-winded explanation, but Tony, I'll start with you. Are you a fan of the expanded playoff system, or are you not a fan?
Yes, I'm a fan.
Token, what are your thoughts?
I like it.
And Spike, you like more playoff teams, or do you think that it kind of dilutes the pool?
No, to paraphrase Daniel Negreanu, more playoffs is better.
Hey, more chances for my Lions.
More games brings in more rake for the NFL.
That was good.
All right, well, without further ado, it's time to dive into these games. The first one on the slate, remember, we use the Westgate Superbook lines here at the time of recording. Again, no contest, but we do have – every one of us has picks for you here at the end of the show. Indianapolis at Buffalo. Buffalo is a 6.5-point home favorite. Total in this one, 51.5. You know, I spend a lot of time around sports books and around gamblers, and I honestly, you know, obviously small sample size, but I haven't found a single person in the city who likes the Colts. And I know that we are on the don't trust Phillip Rivers kind of blacklist for him, but, you know, they've been running the ball a lot better the last few weeks. Jonathan Taylor has the most yards since week 10 in the NFL. And I know he's a rookie with no playoff experience, but, you know, this team's been playing great defense, and that's really what you need in the playoffs. 2 teams actually right here playing great defense. Josh Allen obviously doesn't have the kind of playoff experience at all, but it definitely doesn't have as much as Phillip Rivers here, Tony. It's a big number to lay in the playoffs, but Buffalo's been showing lately. I think they're 8-0 in their last 8 games against the spread here. They can cover it.
Yeah, and I think that's really dictated where this line went and why it is, you know, where it is. To me, there's absolutely no value at all in Buffalo, you know, here. It just, this line is as high as it really could be. I know it touched 7 for a little while earlier in the week, and it's now back down in the 6.5 range. It just got bought back up, I guess, to 6.5. But to me, I just can't fathom how we could find Buffalo here in any sort of value. I'm not saying that means we have to run to the counter and go bet Indy, because I'm with the most of Las Vegas there, and I'm not a big fan of Indy in this spot either. I just don't want to be laying a lot of points, as you said, with a team that is still relatively new to the playoff circuit. I love the coach. I love, things that are going on. But, they still have been a middling defense for the majority of the season. Yes, they've gotten better as the second half has come along here, but they still give up a lot of yards on the ground. And as you said, this has become much more of a running team as Jonathan Taylor has gotten healthy and become really kind of the main ball carrier and taking it upon himself offensively. And I think there's been more of the same here in this spot. And I just can't see Buffalo really stopping him at all in any regard. And if you get a guy that's going to carry the ball 25, 30 times, which I think he absolutely will in this game, so it's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough to keep these guys off not only the scoreboard, but just off the field. And it's hard to cover bigger lines when you just don't have the ball, for a long period of time. So that's kind of where I'm going at in this game. If I had to pick something here, since pretty obvious based on my Jonathan Taylor liking, I got his over in rushing yards at 74 yards. I know it's a kind of a big number, and he just had a lot of carries last week, but I mean, this is where this offense is right now. I'm really, really confident that they are going to run the ball not only effectively, but quite a bit And also, if you wanted to throw out something else, Dawson Knox, kind of newly minted tight end with Buffalo. I've played his over actually 3 times in the last 5 weeks. He was 24 yards only about 4 or 5 weeks ago. He's gone up to 26, 27, and then 28 last week. He keeps covering this over. He keeps getting about 5 to 6 targets a game. He's a very, very good pass catcher. He can block a little bit too, but he's really great, coming out of the backfield, but also lining up as a flanker too. He can really run some routes. So he's about 30 yards this week. I like the over again here with Dawson Knox. So those are the 2 plays that I would be making in this game.
Yeah, and Tony, again, Josh Allen, not a playoff, obviously not playoff experience. Phillip Rivers is, if the time comes to have to call someone into expectation, do you trust more of the Phillip Rivers with the experience he has, or do you trust the way Josh Allen's been playing this year?
I don't really trust either one of them all that much. I mean, if I had to choose, I would probably choose Josh Allen just because I think he's still kind of on the rise and has been playing such great, confident football. And Phillip Rivers just really hasn't shown us that. He also has a very terrible record in cold weather, which we're going to see some, chillier temperatures here, obviously in Buffalo. But to be honest with you, if we're hanging, this game on a quarterback and hopefully hoping the quarterback can bring you to a win, I think that the game plan hasn't succeeded if that's happened, because I believe that significant other players, is really where this game should rest for either team. I think in regards to either team, but I guess if I had to trust anybody more, it would be Josh Allen, as almost sad as that is, based on how long Rivers has had of a career.
And many argue he might be a future Hall of Famer. So.
I know, that's the amazing thing. Yeah, exactly.
Token, I mean, we just talked about Josh Allen, but got 2 guys questionable, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley. Obviously, those are big key pieces. John Brown has kind of emerged to kind of emulate what he did last year when he was just a beast last year. But, I mean, to be honest with you, Josh Allen is quarterback and running back. This is a team that has been played incredible despite the fact that their running back situation is terrible. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss combined for literally nothing week in and week out. I mean, with the exception of a Devin Singletary 50-yard garbage time touchdown run, I've seen nothing out of this running game other than Josh Allen. And, if we get nasty weather here, Josh Allen may not be able to throw the ball as well against this defense, especially if Diggs and or Beasley don't play.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. And considering like how both these defenses play pretty well, this total almost seems kind of high. I mean, this Colts defense ranked in the top 10, both in points allowed as well as yards allowed. Are they going to be able to slow down Josh Allen, the Bills' offense, especially with Diggs and Beasley out? Beasley is kind of like a dark horse wide receiver, in my opinion, for this Buffalo team.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I think all signs are probably pointing to those 2 playing, but if any one of them misses time, those are safety blankets, especially Stephon Diggs. I think he's maybe been one of the better receivers in the league this year. And I guess if you're playing the Colts at a home playoff game, Spike, I think the easiest thing for Josh Allen to do is just deflate the football, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously Mother Nature takes care of some of that for you, but, you and I know that because we studied 3rd grade science. I don't know that the NFL can say the same thing. But in this particular spot, I think this is something, even with if Stephon Diggs is not a go for this game, I'm still not convinced that that's enough of a loss for Buffalo to really even the playing field between these two. I see this as a complete mismatch, even with Phillip Rivers, with the experience and the potential for him Hall of Fame, I guess, seems likely. But I just think Buffalo right now is playing too good of a game to lose to an Indianapolis team that is relying solely on one aspect of an offensive game plan. Yes, they can run the ball, but Buffalo's defense is they can adjust, they can shut that down. I think they do so pretty handily. Has anybody checked a weather report? I guess that's probably something I should have researched before I got into this, but
not too bad. It was, I think, in the high 30s, a little bit of wind, but no snow or any sort of major precipitation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair enough. Not that I think that it would be a huge issue, but when it's when that precipitation does come down, obviously that limits the passing game, and you have to rely on the trenches even more. I think Indianapolis does that anyway, and I don't think that they have the ability to come back from a Buffalo team that can put up points in a hurry. So,
you willing to lay the points here, Spike, or is this more like a teaser type of play for you?
I don't typically play teasers, but if
Okay.
I did, I absolutely would have Buffalo on this teaser.
Gotcha.
That seems reasonable to me. The points, I don't have them as a play as far as our non-contest contest goes, but if we expanded it out so that we were picking every game this week, then yes, I would take the Buffalo minus the 6.5.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, I haven't heard a single person really express support for the Indianapolis side. And to me, Frank Reich said it early in the year, the pressure is on Buffalo this game. I mean, they're the AFC East champions. They have basically, with the exception of a Hail Mary, they'd be on a 10-game winning streak right now. They won 9 out of their last 10, to win the AFC, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to that Rams-Seattle game. Obviously, an interesting wrinkle is the Jared Goff situation, and we talked to Tony here. He's more in the camp of Wolford, however you say his name, getting the start here. Seattle, the Seahawks, a 3-point favorite over the Rams here at home. Total in this one, 42. Both defenses, you talked about it, Tony, the Rams have been playing well pretty much all year. Seattle's gotten better as they've gotten healthier. Remember, at the beginning of the year, they were just absolutely like all-time atrociously bad as far as all the statistical categories. Russell Wilson was keeping that team afloat. Actually, without the greatness that was Russell Wilson in the first 8, 9, 10 weeks of the year, this would not be a playoff team. And that's kind of where I thought at the beginning of the year, that's what I thought would happen here, even though they had acquired Jamal Adams at that time. Nevertheless, they won the division again. So in this situation, I look at it, as much as I, don't love Jared Goff, I feel like, I know what we saw at Wofford in the victory against Arizona. The victory against Arizona really didn't have Kyler Murray in it. So, I'll lean towards your expertise with John Wolford. How do you say it, Wolford or Wofford?
Wofford, I believe.
Wofford, okay. So, yeah, he had 231. He rushed for 56 yards, which is scary when you have those 3 running backs back there, Henderson, Brown, and Cam Akers. Cam Akers had a ball-out game a couple weeks ago against it's evading me, but he had like 180 yards, and he was really not heard from again the rest of the year. So I just I don't think things are going to go well for the Rams here, Tony, if John Wolford's leading that team in rushing again this week.
I would agree. Although Akers did have 20 carries last week, he just wasn't able to really get out of his own way. He only had about 35 yards, I think, on those carries. He's going to be the main back. I don't think there's any question about that. Those other 2 guys might split 2 or 3 carries, but he's going to be one of the main guys here. And, he had a couple of nice games, even right after that game that you had talked about, a game against Seattle. Again, he had limited carries, but he actually ended up with about 6 yards a carry in that game and actually looked really, really good, down the stretch, even though they weren't able to hang on to the win. But, yeah, I like the dynamic that he gives. In the second half, it really, really confused the Arizona defense, not only just in RPO type of sets, but just getting outside the pocket. Wofford was really, really difficult to defend, and he was able to run for 3 first downs in the second half, 2 of them on third down with his legs that, just plays that Jared Goff is just not going to have. If receivers are covered, the ball's thrown away, and all of a sudden you're punting, but now you have a first down. And, that's the difference to me there. Do I want to, go to war with this guy, or is he going to be my Super Bowl type of quarterback? No, definitely not that. But I just like what we're getting, comparably speaking. So that's the one thing that I really like there. When this line opened, I kind of wanted to bet the over here. It just seems so low. And then just looking at these 2 teams, and especially as you said, Aaron, this is the Seattle I think we kind of expected as the season went on, not to be this great offensive team, per se, but to be much more of a defensive style team. And they've really come into their own here. We know the Rams are, very likely the best defense in the NFL. And I don't know if number 2 is all that close, but Seattle has really come on these last 4 or 5 weeks. So again, probably more of the same here. It's one of those things I'm not going to step in front of. That was my first instinct, but then just looking at the game, really in depth, I decided to just pass on that. I don't know. I kind of see this thing as really a grinded out, close game. I understand why the movement has happened. I know it opened about 4.5 with Seattle's the favorite now down to about a 3 even. Makes sense to me. Makes a lot of sense. I have no action really on either side here. If I was to bet anything, it's actually weirdly enough, Aaron, I would lean towards taking this Akers over rushing yards. Again, I'm not a big over guy in general, but I think this number's low enough here at 62, 63 rushing yards, especially if we really think he's going to get in that 18 to 20 carry range. Yeah, it's a good rush defense that they have in Seattle, no doubt. It's a good defensive line, but I think this guy's too good and he's talented. But the thing is, I just want to wait and see who this quarterback is going to be, or if we even get any sort of announcement at all before the game. So I'm staying away from everything until we really know who the quarterback will be, but I think this will be a really, really close game right down to the wire.
Would we be able to kind of read between the lines if if the team feels Goff's ready to go and they still go with Wofford? I mean, Sean McVay, obviously he's the big offensive guy, and if he trusts Wofford more, I mean, what does that say?
It's sad, but I think they're able to pretty much rid themselves of Goff in the offseason if they want to. I think there might be some money they might owe, but it's not nearly a full season. It says a lot, Aaron. I think you're exactly right. It would say quite a bit. But we know this quarterback upcoming, class is going to be relatively deep in free agency again. So if they want to go a different direction, I think they can. And to me, what I saw, based on the way that he can run the football, I think gives them the added dynamic. And McVay sort of cryptically said kind of the same thing throughout the week in his press conferences, not naming a starter. Goff looks like he's healthy. He was throwing the ball with his usual velocity yesterday in practice. I would not be shocked if Walford plays here and or starts with a relatively, healthy Goff ready to go. I think there's a chance it happens.
In token, this is one of the 2 divisional matchups we get in the playoffs here, the other one being Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Yeah, that potentially could have a hand in why this line is one of the more closer lines we have here in the wild card weekend.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Seattle's defense has definitely been improving. Rams defense, definitely one of the better ones in the league. Whether they start Goff or Walford, I mean, it's going to be a question, pretty much game time decision for this Rams team. I think either way, they're going to keep this one close. And if Walford starts, I actually think he gets a touchdown pass in this one. If not, maybe even a rushing one on top of it, too. I think this Rams team is able to kind of get past the Seattle defense and put up a decent amount of points.
All right, well, what do you tell a bettor who's literally waiting for the quarterback to be decided? I mean, if the quarterback's decided and it's Jared Goff, maybe Vegas thinks that it gets closer. I don't know. Or the points move. So
I think the total moves in that spot. I don't think the points necessarily move too much. I would say maybe a half, maybe 1 point at most.
Who would you
spread? But
if you're Sean McVay, who would you go with?
If Goff's ready to go and he seems capable, maybe start him, but keep him on a short leash.
All right, Spike, how short's the leash for Jared Goff? I mean, I know that you're not the biggest Goff fan. You're not the biggest fan of the NFC West in general.
Well, both of those statements being true. However, Jared Goff has actually thrown a touchdown pass in his NFL career, which is not something that we can say for John Wofford. That I understand that long term, the Rams may say that Walford is the guy. This is the one that we want to base our team on, especially the salary cap relief. If they do get rid of Goff, assuming they can get rid of him, I understand all that. But for the sake of consistency, when you're talking about the offensive line and the timing that they have with Goff versus Walford, for the sake of the experience that Goff gives you over Wofford, I think if Goff is even at 80% that he starts this game. I don't think you can go with somebody so inexperienced that their second NFL start is a divisional playoff game. It just doesn't make sense, especially if you have a quarterback that is physically capable of going in the game. If Goff is completely useless, if his arm is out of his socket, if his leg is hanging on by a string, then so be it. You go with the backup. But I think they do everything physically possible, short of cybernetic implants to get Goff in the game, that he'll be the one playing. So, I mean, it's an interesting storyline for sure, but I think it's just a way for sports writers to waste ink and to waste airtime rather than an actual controversy. I think it's Goff all the way. Not that it matters, because I think no matter who they start, Seattle takes this one and takes it close, but that I think Tony Johnson had it right that the line probably makes a lot of sense right at 3.5, or wherever it ends up. So this was actually the first game that I eliminated from my slate from betting for this week. Just not only because of the quarterback controversy, but just because I think the game stays so close no matter what. But I don't see any way Goff doesn't start this game unless he's like 20% of himself.
Well, like I said, if he is 80%, he doesn't start. Could be an interesting wrinkle.
Yeah, well, I think that costs McVay his job if that happens, and they lose.
I will respectfully disagree. I think McVay is probably pretty good for this year, no matter what happens in this game. He may be on some. It all depends on how they feel about Goff. Maybe the ownership doesn't like Goff either, but they got a new stadium to fill next year, maybe, if they can. Who the fuck knows if SoFi's ever going to have a fan in it. All right, the last game of this Saturday slate moving forward here is Tampa Bay versus Washington. The Bucs made the playoffs. It's kind of where I thought they'd be, especially with the extended playoff team availability here. I thought they would be somewhere in that 10-6 range, 9-7. Nevertheless, they are facing they're the 5 seed facing the 4 seed with a record worse than theirs, the 7-9 Washington football team. Now, before we dive into the game, I know we're a week out here. I just kind of want a brief synopsis here. You know, the big issue last week was Giants players being mad at them thinking Doug Peterson threw the game, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that, taking Jalen Hurts out, even though he'd been sacked 5 times and was getting thrown around like a rag doll by the Chase Young and company. But I'll just start here, and then I'll kick it to you guys. I see no problem with what Doug Peterson did. He had a chance to get the bigger rival, in my opinion, the New York Giants, out of the playoffs. He had the chance to move from the 9th pick to the 6th pick. I see no issues here.
Yeah, I honestly don't really care either way. It's one of those things that everyone was all up in arms with. As a Giants, if I was a Giants person or whatever, I think I'd be harping on the fact that we just couldn't win very many games ourselves. You know, when you only win, 6 games or whatever they won, I mean, how can you be complaining about anything? You know, go out and win 9-10 games. You want to win a division, go win the division. I mean, it's just to have to hope for some shitbag team to, beat another shitbag team so you can get in is just – I mean, it's just a waste of time and energy.
That's the worst.
I mean, God, I just that type of complaining just really upsets me. But yeah, whatever he wants to do, I mean, it's their team. You know, they can do what they want. You know, did I agree with it? You know, no, not really. But they were also down 3 at that point. Jalen Hurts had not played all that well in that game. Yeah, he had done what he could. I'm not saying it was a great situation or a great spot for him. Obviously, they were sitting a lot of guys, in that game, but. I mean, I'm with you, Aaron. I don't really – it's fine. Whatever they want to do is fine. If that's the route they wanted to go, that's fine. If you wanted to try to go all out and win that game at all costs, that would have been fine with me too. I mean, it's a team organizational decision in my world, and I don't care about that organization. So to me, it is what it is.
Not only that, Token, I mean, Doug Peterson came out beginning of the week or during the week prior and said Nate Sudfeld or Zach Sudfeld – is going to play in this game at some point.
Yeah, he did. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so ludicrous. I mean, the only people that are pretty much barking on this one is Giants fans. And, I mean...
the Giants who lost to Philly earlier in the year. Lost to
who it would have been cool if they would have made the playoffs winning the division at 6-10, but no, screw them. They don't deserve to get in. So...
yeah, and Spike, there was reports that Eagles players in the locker room after the game had to be held back from Doug Peterson. How much trash is that? You know, your team, you played like trash all season, and then your coach made an executive decision for the betterment of the team, and you want to fight the guy? Come on. Come
Yeah,
on.
no. Well, first of all, I don't necessarily buy it because that seems like Philly writers trying to cause controversy to try to get a new coach in there rather than like actual fact.
Well, Miles Sanders actually, I mean, is on record saying that this happened. So I think you're right. I think they took that and ran with it. But I mean, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Is this what we're at now? Players are just going to, I don't know, if, when they set up, they had to be held back. I don't know if that means fighting or if just a strong conversation. Who knows nowadays?
yeah. Well,
Fight your
strong
coach.
converse.
Fight your coach.
Yeah, no, I mean it's nonsense because you throw a punch at your coach. That's a good way to never get on another team ever again in your life. So unless you're retiring, there's no point to that. I don't know. I just all this kind of locker.
Maybe Tom Brady will punch Bruce Arians if they don't win the Super Bowl.
There we go. That would be fun.
That'd be a good storyline.
That would be.
I don't know. I mean, all this stuff is, to me, feels like a lot of, guys like us that have podcasts, writers that have, column inches to fill, all that stuff. The teams are out of the playoffs. They have nothing else to do, but they don't want to quite call it a season yet and, start taking down the Christmas tree and, start dealing with the family they've been neglecting over the last 18, 20 weeks. It seems like this is kind of one last gasp to get clicks and to get listens. Like, I don't buy it. I don't, I'm not falling for the hype that this is actually an actual controversy. I just it was probably one guy, he probably even smiling as he went after the coach. Like, what are you doing? Ha ha ha. Wink, wink, not judge.
Please resign me.
Yeah, exactly. It's whatever.
All right. Nevertheless, it's the football team who wins this division. All right. Raise your hand if you had the football team winning the NFC East. Yeah, I didn't think so. That alone, to me, with everything that's gone on personally and everything that's gone on, in the world and everything that's gone on with the football team, Ron Rivera, hands down, coach of the year, regardless if he wins this game or not. Tampa Bay on the road, 8-point favorites. Total in this one, 44.5. Questionable is Alex Smith. Now, this Washington football team is a tale of two teams with and without Alex Smith. They are 5-1 with Alex Smith, and they are, let me do the math here, what is that, 2-8? 2-8 without Alex Smith. Now, a lot of that's the Dwayne Haskins, Kyle Allen, Taylor Heineke rotation there. But, I mean, this team is night and day, when Alex Smith plays. Alex Smith, I mean, that's going to be crazy. Comeback player of the year is probably Alex Smith locked up. Coach of the year is probably Ron Rivera here. It's a feel-good story, and we've seen it before. The home team, the under 500 team, knocks off the heavy favorite here. We saw it with Seattle and New Orleans. Remember the Beast Quake? I don't remember how many years ago that was. I think that was about 10 years ago now. But don't sleep on Washington. I think they, despite the fact they're hosting this playoff game, Tony, and they're huge underdogs, they, like we said with Indianapolis, they got nothing to lose here. They don't belong.
No, they don't. And I'm using the don't belong argument for my first wager here of this playoffs. I decided to go after Tampa Bay right away. I was hoping it opened around 7, and it did actually open at 7 at a couple of places. I mean, within 2 minutes of the opening line, this is kind of what I've been trying to do a lot of this season, is just get on these lines right away. I was pretty confident that the only money we were going to see for the most part was Tampa. So I decided to lay the 7. I like the spot a lot here for Tampa. I mean, I agree the feel-good story is there. Everything is there, but I think it's a great matchup for Tampa for a couple of reasons. The first one is that nobody runs on this team. Just absolutely nobody runs on Tampa. And we have seen now over the last couple of weeks that Alex Smith is not 100%. Whether he was 100% at any point in the season is certainly arguably, he's not the player that he used to be, obviously. But at least in the last couple of weeks, he just can't move, very well. So you have a quarterback that's really unable to move in and around the pocket, and a team, I think, that is their identity right now just has to be able to run the ball in order to score. Antonio Gibson, we have to give him a lot of credit. He's been a good back here, kind of come out of nowhere. I just don't understand where they're going to go, in this thing. And if he can't run at all, which almost nobody has against Tampa, I just don't know where any of the points are going to come from. So to me, I don't think this is going to be a complete offensive, show that Tampa has basically shown the last 2 or 3 weeks. Again, those are against some rougher defenses. This is a real strong defensive unit, especially on the line, getting pressure on the quarterback. But I'm pretty confident what we're going to see here with Tampa. They've called a couple of different game plans throughout the year, depending upon the situation that's needed. I don't think we're going to see Brady hold the ball at all. A lot of these type of game plans we saw maybe in his New England days here, where the ball's out of his hand really, really quickly. A lot of what we're seeing with Ben Roethlisberger this season. I think we're going to see a lot of really short, quick routes, a lot of running of the ball here with Ronald Jones. And if anything can be beaten here with this Washington defense, is they have not really done all that well on the edges, stopping the run. And that's where Ronald Jones is best. He's really, really good on stretch plays, along the edge. I think this is going to be a relatively strong kind of stranglehold game here with Tampa. Not a lot of big plays. But we're going to see them hold the ball for a long, long time. And I just like Tampa in a lot of spots in this game. I'm going to go ahead and take the team total under as well for Washington. I think I can get that around 17.5. I'm just not sure they can score more than one touchdown in this game, barring a defensive or special teams touchdown, which would probably beat you there. Hopefully they don't get anything like that. But I think Tom's going to hold the ball and be pretty strong with it here. And I think this is a pretty one-way traffic in this game. Great story, really nice thing with Washington. I think they're just happy to be here. I think it's a really, really good thing. But the real team, and in my opinion, the way I've handicapped these two teams throughout, this is a really drastic difference between these two teams. And I like Tampa a lot.
Yeah, and you mentioned any possibility of weapons for Washington. Gibson and McLaurin are both questionable. The prognosis isn't great for Gibson. McLaurin's probably going to get in there. But again, if Alex Smith doesn't have any weapons, they already don't really score a lot. They're going, if they're going to win this game, they have to be in one of the. You might even get a Washington win and that team total stay under. I think that's the only way Washington, really can compete and or win this game is to have something like 17-10, 20-14 kind of thing. And it's going to be on. I mean, if Chase Young's going to call out Tom Brady, the only like we talk about every week, the only way to really slow Tom Brady down is to get in his face, and Chase Young's going to do everything he can, to kind of live up to his quote unquote calling out of Tom Brady. I tell you what, though, Token, I was looking at this stat today. Tom Brady has 11,388 passing yards in the postseason history. The next active player is Ben Roethlisberger at 5,256. Is this an unattainable record, or is somebody like maybe Patrick Mahomes ever going to break this record? Because think how for what 20 years minus 2 years we saw Tom Brady in the postseason at least one game a year.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion, as long as he stays healthy, I don't see that Kansas City team not making the postseason and him at least averaging probably close to 2.5 games in the postseason per year. Wow. So you multiply that by 20. I think he's got a shot. Whether he gets it or not, that's going to be a tale of the signs. But I actually think he might be able to surpass it.
Yeah, the other active quarterbacks who made the list here, Aaron Rodgers at 5,027, and obviously Drew Brees at 4,967 will not catch Tom Brady, I would imagine. But he's a whole full season ahead of the next guy in second place, Peyton Manning. So, I mean, it's just 4,000 yards above the next guy is crazy. And Brett Favre, another one, only 5,800 yards. Just a testament to making the playoffs every year in and year out. But Token, how do you see this one? I mean, two good defenses, one good offense, but it's a home game for Washington.
It's home game for Washington, but that doesn't mean trash, and especially the COVID year that we've had. I just see the Bucs.
That was going to be a thing this year. Sorry to interrupt you. I did say that. Yeah. I was curious how that would affect teams this year. I wonder. I mean, we can probably look back on that as a season wrap up. But go ahead.
Yeah, it doesn't make that much difference home field, especially in the playoffs. I mean, regardless to say, even if there are fans, there's not many. This Washington defense is not good on the edge. Ronald Jones will make up for a little of his lost time missing 2 games in the season and have a little anger against him missing out on 1,000 rushing yards this season. This Bucs offense will easily put up 3 touchdowns on this Washington defense.
All right. Well, Spike, I mean, here's the situation. Just like the Indianapolis-Buffalo game, I haven't met a single person in Las Vegas, including these two, that have anything nice to say about the football team.
No, and I will say I think Tony Johnson is slightly underselling exactly what happens when a team with a good defensive line gets in Tom Brady's face. I mean, that is the tried and true way to beat a Tom Brady-led team. The problem for Washington this year is that they just don't have the offense to back it up that would be able to put up more points than the Tampa Bay team. So I think Tampa Bay wins. I think Tampa Bay covers that. It's now sitting at 8, according to Vegas Insider. So I think, Tampa Bay still wins this one by double digits, but I don't anticipate this being anywhere near the kind of blowout it would need to be in order for the Washington defensive line to not matter, as we previously heard. I will say one thing, even though you didn't ask me, I do not think Patrick Mahomes gets anywhere near Tom Brady's record. He's lucky if he gets half of it when it comes to playoff passing yards. And that's specifically because of the salary cap issues where Tom Brady took no money, Patrick Mahomes takes all the money, and therefore Kansas City will not be able to maintain a good team around him for long enough to get that team back into the playoffs year in and year out, which we've seen as the folly of Green Bay and Pittsburgh and New Orleans and all these other teams that have had really good quarterbacks, and they've just had those off years where they just couldn't afford to put anybody good around them until they were able to build up through the draft in other ways.
All right. Well, I will disagree with your half comment, but I can understand exactly where you're coming from based on this list. Roethlisberger, Rodgers, and Brees. How many years did Drew Brees and the Saints go 8-8 or 7-9 and not make the postseason? So I can understand exactly how the point you're making, and but I think Mahomes is better than those three, and I will say he goes over half. I will say that. I'll say he gets somewhere close to the Peyton Manning range of 7,300 yards.
So. Fair enough.
And how many buys will they have in the playoffs, too? That actually could matter for this situation.
How many buys did Brady have? I mean, I feel like they were the 1 or 2 seed probably 10 years at least.
Sure. No, but that's what I'm saying.
Half, yeah.
Absolutely.
The thing that might actually work out in Mahomes' favor is if this becomes a staple, the 17, they might not make
they only have one
every year.
Yeah.
They may not have the number 1 seed every year in this spot. I mean, up until week 12, they were the 2 seed pretty much all year until Pittsburgh forgot how to win. So, all right, well, let's move forward. That was Saturday's wild card weekend games. We'll move into Sunday here. Baltimore and Tennessee. I think this is the matchup of the weekend. I think all games are great, but again, we talked about it earlier in the show, the revenge game. Baltimore at home got dusted by Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans last year. I believe it was 28-12. They never looked really in the game. But this year, they're favorites on the road, -3.5. They've been playing well down the stretch to get in and stay. Remember, a lot of these teams had to win every single time out, including these two teams, because of the craziness. I do feel bad for Miami that 10-6, they're left out of the playoffs, but c'est la vie. Again, Baltimore, a 3.5-point favorite. Total in this one, 54.5. Vegas expecting fireworks here out of this game. You have Derrick Henry who, ran for 2,000 yards after a 250. I thought they may rest him against Houston. It turns out they hit every ounce of Derrick Henry against Houston last week in a 41-38 victory. I didn't realize that was the Titans' first division title in 12 years. I just, for some reason, felt like they had won 1 or 2 more, but I guess not. So now instead of the Hunty, the Hunter, they're now the Hunty. And they get this angry Baltimore team who's been playing just as well as the Titans have. Again, so I don't know. This is a tough one to handicap, in my opinion. We talked about how well Baltimore's playing, but at the end of the day, Lamar Jackson has shown for 2 straight playoff, now albeit one was his rookie year, but for 2 straight playoff seasons here, he's underperformed in crunch time. He can beat Cincinnati 38-3 all he wants, but you got to beat teams in the playoffs if you really don't want to be considered an overrated quarterback and an overrated team.
I agree completely, Aaron. Maybe the third time's a charm here for him. I know his first couple of playoff games have clearly been big downers, but the difference to me here is that he's not yet going to be playing any sort of an elite defense. And in fact, Tennessee is really one of the worst defenses that has made the playoffs in the last couple of years. If you kind of look in the statistical arena, they're the worst third down defense in the NFL. The worst third down defense in the NFL has not made the playoffs in like 22 years or something like that. It's really remarkable, how bad these guys have been and, how they can't get off the field. But, it's just a testament to how great, on the flip side, how great Ryan Tannehill has been. We can talk about Derrick Henry until we're blue in the face, but I mean, my goodness, Ryan Tannehill and these two receivers, and even in like guys like Jonnu Smith and some others that have been nice additions. It's a really, really strong, offensive team. So to me, I'm not trying to overthink this, or go too far. This looks like a bit of a shootout to me. Baltimore is not afraid to be playing games in shootouts. Just look back even in that Cleveland game, on Monday night. This is not a team that is afraid to, go up and down the field if they have to against anybody else. And to me, I can't fathom Baltimore not being able to hold the ball for the majority of this game. And while time of possession certainly is not the end all be all, not even close, in these types of games, I don't know how they're going to be stopped. Too many guys that can run the ball way too effectively. Tennessee has just struggled immensely, just holding people and holding running backs down. The first and second tacklers just cannot bring guys down. And to me, they're just too good on this side of the ball. So, again, I think the line is pretty good. At -3, I think it might be worth a sniff here with Baltimore. I'm just not really sure kind of what to do with this game. There's no part of me that wants to take Tennessee. But, again, I wouldn't be opposed to somebody making an argument for the over. I know it's a pretty big number here, and it's kind of weird to see that in the playoffs, but this looks like a shootout to me. But I'm certainly leaning Baltimore in this game.
Yeah, and Token, if you had an MVP vote, would you consider giving it to Derrick Henry? I mean, you almost can argue. I mean, he won them the division. He got them this playoff spot. I mean, look at the game against Baltimore, 2 months ago, where he ran that 35, 40-yard touchdown in overtime to beat Baltimore. I mean, it seemed like I respect what you're talking about there, Tony, with Corey Davis, A.J. Brown, and Ryan Tannehill. They've all been fantastic this year, but when they needed big plays, it came from the running game. So, Token, if you had a vote, would you consider Derrick Henry for MVP?
Absolutely, and I was actually thinking about that a little earlier, like what were the odds on him to win an MVP? I mean, it's unlikely that he would get it, but he should be at least in the conversation, in my opinion. I mean, underrated player in that talk for sure. Definitely some leadership and helping the game plan and helping this team win their first division title, like you said, in 12 years, you said?
Yeah, 2008. They also beat the Ravens in 2008 in the playoffs as well to get to the AFC title game.
It's just going to be rough on this Tennessee defense. But, however, they're bad through the air. So,
Baltimore?
Yeah. No, the Titans defense. So, but the run defense is actually pretty solid. So if the Baltimore team can actually, the Ravens, if they can actually throw the ball, they'll probably win by a landslide. But I have no faith in Lamar Jackson to be able to throw in this situation, unless if they run some wildcat or option scheme off this. I just see them kind of struggling in this situation.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Spike, if the Titans focused on one thing to shut down, Baltimore, or put Baltimore in a bind, it would obviously be to shut down the run. I mean, they ran for 400 yards last week against Cincinnati. I mean, if you're Mike Vrabel, I think the game plan is make Lamar Jackson beat you through the air.
Well, it's either make Lamar Jackson beat you through the air or healthy dose of Derrick Henry and just keep the score close all game, so that way you don't have to rely on Tannehill winning with his arm. I hate to completely and 100% echo what Tony Johnson was saying, but I think I kind of have to in this because this is one of my picks this week, and this game going over, and I think it goes over by quite a bit. This is one of those games where, Tennessee can't stop anything. Baltimore's offense is peaking at just the right time, so them putting up somewhere between 30 and 40 points on their own is certainly within the realm of possibility. And then Tennessee with Derrick Henry obviously has the ability to score and score, probably a handful of times. So I think that 54 number is right where it needs to be for me to feel comfortable betting the over. And you know that I'm an under better normally. I don't like going for the overs. So this is one where I actually feel pretty good that this game is going to just see a lot of points scored.
Well, Tony, let me ask you this. Would this be the only game in this wild card weekend where if the dog won, it's not really an upset?
Depends on who you ask, probably. I'd see it as an upset. But no, I mean, I think a lot of people, the general public, seeing that this is the division winning team, the home team, I think that's the general expectation, is that team is probably the favorite and or should be. I mean, everyone is pretty well aware that the football team isn't the favorite, in that game. But I think so, Aaron. I think so. I think that would be probably deemed to be. And again, would any of us be truly shocked if Tennessee, wins this game? No, I mean, definitely not. Certainly they're capable. We've just sang the praises of Derrick Henry, whoever thought we'd see a 2,000-yard rusher again with all the rule changes and it being such a quarterback-driven league. It's really quite an amazing accomplishment. I certainly wouldn't be ridiculously surprised. But yeah, to see it as an upset, personally, I would, but I'm guessing you're probably right. The general public or the majority of the people may not see it as an upset. Yeah,
and you're right about Derrick Henry. I mean, there's only probably less than 5 of these, what they call bell cow backs, still existing really in the league. It might even be 3. I don't know. Yeah. And you know what? Who one of them might be is Adrian Peterson still, Token. he might be a 3-down back there in that spot in Detroit. All right, let's move forward to Chicago and New Orleans. Biggest spread of the week here. New Orleans is a 10-point home favorite against the Bears, who have had the roller coasteriest season, and somehow Matt Nagy goes from Super Bowl contender to he's going to be fired on Black Monday, and now he's in the playoffs, and he still might be fired if they don't perform very well here. But they're up against a big challenge here. But so were the Vikings last year against New Orleans. No one gave the Vikings a chance. Kirk Cousins walked in there and beat him. I mean, in future Hall of Famer Mitchell Trubisky could do the same thing. You never quite know. Total in this one is 47. You have, Tony, convinced me kind of 2 years ago. I said you were crazy, and slowly, little by little, you've convinced me really not to trust Drew Brees anymore at this point in his career. But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot going on here. You got a healthy Mike Thomas. Kamara is going to be back. Everybody's going to be back after missing the Week 17 game there. And the Bears are a little beat up on defense. No Buster Screen. Jalen Johnson's questionable, as well as Roquan Smith and Josh Woods, the linebacker. Really no injuries for the Saints, which is kind of crazy considering they've kind of seemed to have been pasted their stars on the injury report all year, including Drew Brees, Kamara, and Michael Thomas. I don't know how to see this one because Chicago, even though they're limping in here, still plays pretty good defense. And that's a big number to cover. My thoughts on the biggest number of the week.
I do, yes. And I just want to note that I am crazy just for different reasons. But yes, I'm with you. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to see these big numbers here in the playoffs. And, we expect close games, and there do tend to be closer games here and lower scoring games, certainly in the playoffs than you might normally see in the regular season. But this is another one. And I, echoing some Spike, I know we both tend to be under players. We don't love, laying big points. Nobody really does, I think, out of the four of us. But this is another one where I just decided to lay the chalk here. I picked it up at 9. It just looked like to me it's going to 10, 10.5, and that's enough. That's enough value here, especially if it's a game that I like anyway. I'm not just going to be, betting a number for a number if I don't agree with it. But yeah, I don't like the spot at all. Again, for Chicago, I mean, you brought up the injuries, which I think haven't been talked about a lot this week, Aaron, and I think they're pretty important and they're pretty big. While the Bears have been an above-average defense, I would say, for the majority of the season, they actually really haven't been all that good the last 2 or 3 weeks. They've just played some really, really subpar competition on both sides of the ball, and I have not been impressed with what I've seen, despite all the wins and how well Trubisky has played. Just the level of competition has been brutal, and whether teams have given up, whether they're just really beat and dead. I don't like this at all here.
Lions like that.
Yeah. I don't know. And as you said, New Orleans coming in now, probably healthy. We should get Kamara here, it being a Sunday game. I really just like the spot here. I think this will be a thing where we don't need Drew Brees to do too much. I'm not a fan of, obviously, as we know, what he can do, but doesn't have to do a lot, in this type of game. Trubisky's not going to be able to beat you here. He's still making 2, 3, or 4 really, really bad throws each week. There's been some dropped interceptions the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's actually gotten away with some really, really bad stuff, as per normal. I wouldn't be surprised to see a New Orleans special teams or defensive touchdown in this game. I just think there's going to be too many tough spots with the Bears having to come from behind here with Trubisky that I think they're going to be behind the 8 ball early and often in this game. I like laying the 9.5 here. I know it's 10 maybe at most spots here. That starts to give a little bit more pause, but I just can't see this as being, really truly one-way traffic, at all in this game. And again, it's another one where I found another team total. This one was, I think, 19.5, in Chicago. I have the under there as well. I'm just not sure where the points are going to come from here with Chicago. We've come to remember and see Drew Brees and New Orleans as this offensive team, but really in the last 2 years, let's be honest, this is a defensive team more than anything else. And this defense is really strong, especially when healthy. I like this thing really in a one-sided affair.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think the only way, Token, is that the Bears really stay in this game is David Montgomery. I mean, I think we would all agree that for the first year and a half of his career, he's been a huge bust, but he's really turned it on the last half of the season.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that one, Aaron. And I think that's the only hiccup the Saints might see if they're not being able to contain the run with Montgomery and all that. And maybe that opens up the passing for Trubisky or maybe Foles or whoever the third string is if Nagy gets a little interesting in the spot. But
I don't think we'll see Nick Foles here in this game.
No. It's unfortunate for the Bears that they have Trubisky, and maybe it's time for a new quarterback for them. So
this should be his last game, I would think.
You guys just touched on that. I was going to go to Spike here with this. I mean, there's no pressure for the Bears, but there might be some pressure for Mitch Trubisky. I mean, he's technically auditioning at this point. They didn't pick up his option. So whether it's auditioning for the Bears or auditioning for the rest of the league here, Trubisky doesn't have a home next year, Spike.
Yeah, and it's sort of unfortunate that he's in this spot because the Bears are going to get absolutely fucking curb stomped in this game. So no matter what Trubisky does, it's not going to be a great tryout for him to go to other teams. This is a game where the line is currently sitting at 10. I think I would have bet this if it was sitting at about 21.5 for the Saints. It's just one of those games that's not going to be worth watching. Chicago this year against the teams that made the playoffs has a record of 1-6. They are the worst in the league when it comes to yards per play differential. This is just, it's a team that obviously they're in the playoffs for one reason or another, but they are not going to be here long. And I think that this is the absolute worst matchup that they could have asked for, especially given how good New Orleans defense is and given how bad Trubisky looks against good defenses. This is going to be a long day for those boys from Chicago.
Yeah, maybe so. I don't know. I do have a play on this game, so we'll talk about that after we preview this last game, which the last game, in my opinion, was and still will, I'll maintain, is the hardest to handicap of the weekend. I immediately just got away from this game. Pittsburgh versus Cleveland. Pittsburgh's a 6-point favorite. Total in this one, 47.5. And for the life of me, you guys may disagree with me. You guys may have alternate thoughts on this, but I understand that Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the Browns, tested positive. But how in the world, with all the technology we have, is he not allowed to virtually coach this game? It's beyond me. I just think that's just – I mean, God love the Browns. They haven't made a playoff game, and they haven't made a playoffs in 18 years, and now they don't even have their coach going into this game. I mean, to be honest with you, Kevin Stefanski was another guy I would consider for Coach of the Year just because of how bad the Browns were the last, 18 years, I guess. But nevertheless, even without the coach, I'm sure that obviously his message will be in the locker room, and all of those cliches. When these two teams get together, it feels like, Cleveland can stay close but never really win the game, or Pittsburgh just beats the brakes off them. So I really had no idea, how to really handicap it. Pittsburgh got the much-needed rest. They basically got a bye week last week, and still almost beat this Cleveland team that was at full strength. So I don't have anything really to add to this, in my opinion, because I will watch this really not knowing what to expect in this game.
Yeah, no, it was not an easy handicap. I made the line 5.5. So right when it did open at 3.5, obviously before all the COVID news had come out. So I did bet Pittsburgh just based on the number. It wasn't just one of those things I love per se. And obviously got very, very fortunate in regards to that bet, with this COVID news. But to me, and the fact that it moved 1.5 I'm not really sure. That's just a guess. How are, is a really quality, guard and a head coach, as you said, who's had a great season, are they worth 1.5 in a game like this? I don't think anybody really knows. It's just a guess, what the markets are trying to take. But it's not one of those things that I'd want to lay 6 with, at this point. There's no doubt I'm going to be buying some back here. I'm hoping that it gets to maybe 6.5 or something like that. And I'm going to go ahead and take Cleveland getting that. But if it has to be 6, I'll take the +6 and maybe get, hopefully get a lucky middle here. I don't like this. I don't like the situation, in regards to a Pittsburgh side. It all kind of looks like it's, going one way. Pittsburgh doesn't really seem to lose games like this. Cleveland is Cleveland. I'm not necessarily sure that Cleveland is that much of a worse team than Pittsburgh is. Again, I liked it in regards to 5.5 point favorite, but that's partly because they're at home. I do think these are relatively even matched teams. And how is Pittsburgh going to do against the run? That to me, that's the big key here. In all of this is having lost all of these guys now on defense. Some really, really, really strong players, not just pass rushers. That's the way. That's the win here, in my opinion, for Cleveland, is if they can run the ball 30 to 40 times, in this game and keep the chains moving. This is a really, really, really strong, tale of two backs. Really, I don't think it's just a Nick Chubb type of team. I was confident earlier in the week. I'm not nearly as much. I do think it is a tough handicap. I think you're right, Aaron. But I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's a good game and a close game. And I'd like to see it, at least from the Cleveland perspective, that at least they're in this thing and have a chance to win at the end, because it is a franchise that has certainly not had their fair share in the last few decades. And so it's nice to see them at least here in the playoffs and having a chance.
And not only that, I mean, Token, at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield said they might be a better team without OBJ. Well, they made the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's for sure. I mean, they've got definitely one of the most complete backs in the league right now with Chubb for sure, and Hunt's a nice key piece of this offense as well. I think the problem comes with Baker Mayfield in this spot, though. He relies on the play action too much, and Pittsburgh's definitely better on defense against play action. So it screams alarm for the Browns in this one, and I have no faith in the Browns still. I mean, this whole organization, in my opinion, it's not down the toilet as much as it was, say, a couple of years ago, but
looking back up the toilet.
It's still swirling around, though.
Oh,
Mike, how do you follow that?
oh, jeez.
I don't know that I can, and I'm kind of fortunate that I have nothing too much to say about this game, because this is not something that I'm I'm excited to watch, but as far as handicapping it goes, it's just not one that I could figure out one way or the other. I did see some stats about Pittsburgh saying that they are 2-5-2 against the spread in their last 9 playoff games. They're 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games following a straight up loss, and they're 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 playoff games as a favorite. So none of those numbers make me feel confident about Pittsburgh. So that would mean Cleveland, right? But
Oh, jeez.
yeah, so this is not one that I wanted to spend too much time on. I will say the fall of Pittsburgh from where they started the year to where they ended the year has been kind of fascinating to watch. So you wonder what has caused this overall. If it's a coaching thing, is Roethlisberger hurt? Did they change game plans too much? Did they not change enough and other teams figured them out? Like, I don't know what happened to this team that started off, 11-0, 12-0, whatever it was. So very, very interesting team for me. Not a spot that I really felt like my money would be safe one way or the other. So I actually laid off this one, and this is I think we're better off for it. It'll be an entertaining game at the very least, and be a nice way to wrap up the weekend before the college football championship. But
If that even gets played.
all right,
Yeah,
fair.
that's true. If Cleveland wins this game, it'd be the first postseason victory in 26 years.
Yep, since Bill Belichick.
Tony, is Mike Tomlin the best coach this weekend?
Oh, what a question. The best coach this weekend.
Oof.
That's tough. I'm a huge fan of McDermott in Buffalo. I have been now since he started back over there. Aaron, jeez almighty. I don't.
You could probably ask 100 people and get 50 yeses and 50.
Yeah, I mean, I like Sean McVay a lot with the
Payton.
Rams. John Harbaugh's really good. Sean Payton is an offensive genius. I don't know, but I mean, Mike Tomlin doesn't really do anything well. I feel like he's just a great glue, and an extremely strong, willed and personality that I think people tend to gravitate towards. I don't know. Tomlin's a hard guy to kind of group anywhere. I would say McDermott is the best coach. If I had to take one, I'm going to go with McDermott, but these are tough questions. There's a few very, very good ones, that's for sure. And Stefanski could end up being, one of the greats of our time here if he continues to have seasons like this. Man, he had a great season, both in game and off.
I'm talking about the here and now.
I'm going with Sean McDermott if I have to go with somebody.
Token, here you go. I'll throw you a curveball.
Mm-hmm.
Will any coach who loses this weekend get fired?
For sure, might be Nagy. It depends how they lose and everything.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, Tony. If Cleveland beats Pittsburgh, will they fire Tomlin?
You asking me?
Yeah.
No, 0% chance.
Is it because it's Pittsburgh and they don't fire anybody? But I think this is a huge upset if Cleveland beats Pittsburgh. I mean, Cleveland has been Pittsburgh's just child. What did Pedro Martinez say? I must tip my cap and call him the Yankee my daddy. That's pretty much Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, that was that was Pedro in 2004 during the regular season, and then he shut him up in the postseason. I agree with Tony Johnson. There's a 0% chance Tomlin gets fired because number one, it's Pittsburgh and they don't fire anybody. But number two, given the turnaround they had from last year to this year, I don't see how you fire a coach that has that kind of season. Even if they lose to Cleveland, by 60 points, he still doesn't get fired.
All right. Well, the last one I'll ask: if they lose by 2 or more touchdowns, does Bruce Arians get fired?
No. What do you know? They're in the playoffs. They won a bunch of games.
Washington and don't win that game. I can't feel good if I'm the Glazers. The time is now. So and you've already had conflict between the coach and the quarterback going to stay if he wants to. I mean, don't forget, guys, Marty Schottenheimer went 14-2, went to the AFC Championship game, and didn't come back.
That's the Chargers. Yeah, but you're talking about
our team's just as dysfunctional as the Chargers.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. All right, maybe.
Tampa Bay can be as dysfunctional as the Chargers.
Can be, maybe. Okay, maybe.
They're a polished turd. They think they're better than they are. Because they have, I do think Nagy could be fired, though. I do.
That's
agree.
possible. That's possible.
Yeah.
I agree. Yes.
Although I think, despite what he's done with what he has, it's pretty admirable.
Still the tip of the cap.
For the cap to Matt Nagy, but as that guy in the sports book once said, fire them all.
Yeah.
All right, it's time
A
for
whole lot of them.
time for picks for the Wild. They're calling it the Super Wildcard Weekend. So since Token, you won the contest, Spike came in second, Tony Johnson in third, and me in fourth. We're going to give you our picks in that order because that's kind of how we did it week to week as Tony took the lead. So, Token, let's hear some picks here. Your Super Wildcard Weekend picks.
I actually have 4 in total, including a tip of the cap on this week of the game. So I'm going to go Buffalo minus 6.5 and a lean on the under at 51.5. And then we're going to move over to the over 42.5 in Seattle and the Rams. That was my last one in. The only worrisome I have is whether they start Goff or not. I feel more confident over if Goff is the starter in this one. Then Tennessee plus the 3, I actually think they win this game, and slight upset, but not a huge, overpowering upset or something like if even Cleveland or the Bears somehow manage a victory. And then Pittsburgh minus the 5.5 is my last one. I think they win this one by score about 7-10.
All right, Spike, what do you got for us on this Super Wildcard Weekend?
Well, I have 2 officially and then 1 unofficial. I think I tipped my hat on both of the ones that I wanted to do officially. New Orleans minus 21. Even though the line is at 10, I will please that up as much as I can because God almighty, that game is going to be a fucking bloodbath. And the over in the Tennessee-Baltimore game currently sitting at 54.5. Those are my 2 official picks. The unofficial pick is one where I actually have to agree with Token Tony and take Tennessee plus the 3.5, depending on what you can get. This is another one where I think Tennessee wins outright. I actually did a parlay of all the money line favorites except Tennessee as the money line dog for this weekend. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, I think that Tennessee potentially, I'm not super confident. It's kind of like a 60% thing. I think they win, but I think they can get there.
All right. First game, I don't know if we're going with some of the fancier type of bets here or whatever, but I do have a Buffalo under team total under 29.5 points. I don't know if that counts, but that's what we have. In the second game of that day, I don't have anything. There's going to be some player props and stuff and such like that, but just right into the night game. Whatever it is right now, I guess it's -8. Tampa Bay, I would certainly be confident laying the 8 with Tampa. Also a under 17.5 team total for the football team. I'm not even quite sure they can get to 14 at all. I'd bet that one all the way down into that 14.5 range. Into the next day, nothing in the first game, although the more we talk about this and the more I think about it, it really does feel like an over. Just 54.5 in a playoff game is so uncomfortable to be taking an over, but I do like both teams scoring in this one. So that's, I guess, close there if I had to be one. I do like New Orleans quite a bit here, even laying the 10. If I had to lay the 10, the current number, I would still bet it, certainly at -10. Also have that Chicago Bears under 19.5 total points. The only problem with that one is the back door certainly is open. If it's 35-17 or something like that, and the Bears have the ball right at the end, certainly the back door with Trubisky has been open here these last 3 or 4 weeks. You never know in a spot like that, so it's a little bit uncomfortable there. But and then the final game, I think it's going to be tough. I do already have a wager on Pittsburgh -3.5, but I can guarantee that I'm going to be betting the other side at +6, hopefully +6.5 at some point. So I don't know if that counts as a bet because I'm going to have some sort of middle, but currently we do have Pittsburgh -3.5.
No, I think you can look at it as the current number stands. You would be on Cleveland at this point.
That's true. That's
only
confirmed.
because you have that middle up.
Correct. Yes.
So, yeah, that's fair. So, all right, rounding out, I have 3 picks and a teaser for this wild card weekend. The first one, like I said, no one in this entire city has any faith in Indianapolis, and we've said it 100 times on the show. Don't trust Phillip Rivers. Well, I'm going to the well one more time. I'm going to take Indianapolis +6.5. I do really give them no shot to win this game. But I do think that they will give Buffalo everything they got and, unfortunately, probably lose this game by 3 or 4 points.
Do you think it can get back to 7 by game time?
It'd be great if they could. But
In game.
We're talking as of the recording here, the game's on in 12
True.
hours.
That's true. True.
So,
Yeah.
Could be a spot for in-game if you can catch it like +10.5.
Yeah, Buffalo gets out and scores a TD, you might get 8.5, 9.5, something like that. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right, second one. I am on that Tampa Bay and Washington game as well, but I am not on a side. I'm taking the under 44.5. Everybody likes the blowout, which I can totally see. Something along the lines of 28-7. But at the same time, I think if Washington can stay in this, the only way they can is if this game stays under, 14-13, 17-10, something like that. So I think I'm going to play the under. It started at 42. It's actually gone up to 44.5. So I'm taking the under 44.5. And it may even get higher and higher, in the next, however many hours we got left. And going into Sunday, I am on that Chicago and New Orleans game, but I am on the under 47. I think I'm okay with Spikes -21 because I'm in that camp. I think Chicago might get shut out here. I think we could look at 31-0. And that obviously stays under the total. So normally I go with that 14.4 team tease. I'm going to mix it up just a smidge. We're going to go with a 3-team 10-point teaser at -120 odds. And that might be what I go with next year in the 2021-22 season. So these are all going to be correlated with the picks. So I'm going to take Indianapolis +16.5. I am going to take Tampa Bay and Washington to under 54.5. Now, this pick deviates a little bit because it's a 10-point teaser. I'm going to take New Orleans to a pick 'em because I don't think there's any way they lose this game. So I know famous last words, but New Orleans pick 'em, Tampa Bay, Washington under 54.5, and Indianapolis getting 3 scores here in this point. So that's where we're at for Super Wildcard Weekend. Hopefully our bets are successful, and if you tail them, you're successful too. Give me a crazy thing that might happen here in the Wildcard Weekend, Toby. The Super Wildcard Weekend.
Trubisky gets benched in this one, and Nagy gets fired by halftime.
By halftime.
I said wild. I guess I meant real.
I want a step above.
Spike, what's the wild thing that's going to happen in Super Wild Card Weekend?
I think a wild thing that we see happen is without injury, Derrick Henry is held to under 40 yards.
Wow.
Ooh,
That would be wild.
That's wild. I agree. Wow.
All right, Tony, what do you got?
I'm gonna go relatively equally wild on the running front. I'm gonna go with 4 running backs rush for over 150 or more yards. I can name them if you'd like, but I think there's gonna be 4.
I'd like this. Let's see if you can maybe just see how many you can get right.
Jonathan Taylor in game number 1.
Okay.
Let me just make sure I have my games right here. Game number 2, Nobody. Game 3, Ronald Jones. Now going into the.
Say this. I remember at the beginning of the season, you had some harsh words for Ronald Jones.
I have been eating those words throughout the season. He's been quite good this year, and I think that's the game where they can really run through this. And everyone expects Fournette to get a bunch of carries. I think Fournette's 2 or 3 mixing in here and there at the most, but this is the Ronald Jones game in my opinion. Game number 3, Derrick Henry. And game 6, I'm going to go with Nick Chubb, also in the 150-plus category. Those are your 4 backs.
I love it. I absolutely
Nice.
love it. That's fantastic. All right, and my super wild prediction of the weekend, and obviously this is caveat as if John Wofford starts. John Wofford goes on the road, throws for 3 touchdowns and an LA Rams victory.
Nice.
Throw him for 3 touchdowns. Wow.
Yeah, get some prop on that. That would be nice. Yeah.
Got to be some high.
Got to be something. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that wraps it up here for the Vegas Squares and Super Wildcard Weekend Pick Show. We appreciate you listening. Remember to support our sponsors, obviously, the people that air us, 12 Ounce Sports Network, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And then please support our sponsors at lvsquares.com. Click the sponsors tab. Our sponsors, Fanatics, Vice Golf, the HEATR Bet app, and ProAm Customs and intheholegolf.com. Please go support them so they can continue to support us. For Spike, for Token Tony, for Tony Johnson, good luck on your bets. Enjoy watching the extended wild card weekend. We get 6 games instead of 4. I can't wait. We'll see you next week. Peace. Later.